Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Kester, and I am the Program Coordinator for the Transformative Learning Center at the University of Toronto, Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. I am also a civic education instructor for the Civic Education Project of Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, United States. And I am here today, gladly, very excitingly, with Manshala Bharati, who is a professor at the Tata Institute for Social Sciences in India. And she is also the chairperson for the Center for Media and Cultural Studies. Manshala has been working for the past 15 years in India on democratic decentralization. And I believe that's in terms of both the process of democratic decentralization and also in institutional building. And we are going to be here with Manshala today, we are present now, to speak about processes of participatory democracy and the experience of women within democracy. So we're very excited to have you here, Manshala.
Hi.
So I think we will begin, first of all, to have you introduce yourself a little bit more about the work you do and where you come from.
See, like you were saying, Kevin, I am from India, and I teach in Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and I work therefore in Mumbai. But by basically my research work in almost all parts of India. I work in Kerala, Maharashtra, Bihar, Rajasthan, Karnataka, northeastern states, and also in Leh. In all the places I have been working on democratic decentralization. I have been trying to understand the kind of process of democratic decentralization, especially with women and tribals. That is the area that, because the moment you are saying about democratic decentralization, you are trying to say the process of deepening the democracy. And these are the group of people who have been marginalized from exercising their rights in the public domain. So how they are able to, these institutions, the new notions of institutions, is to give them a new voice, audibility, visibility, from their historic notions of exclusions, marginalization and neglect. And in this historicity, how they are going to negotiate with their kind of presence, where we have in India the Panchayat Raj institutions, the new structures for the local self-governance institutions in India, which is one of the largest institutional network in the world. Yeah, see, we have 1.06 million women who are there.
1.06 million women.
That's right.
Who are participating in deepening democracy.
They are the elected women representatives.
Elected women representatives.
In the local governance institutions.
Okay.
So then this number is huge. Okay. And the moment we are trying to understand what these women are trying to do in the kind of spaces of these political institutions, and what are the institutional challenges that they are facing, what are the societal changes, and what are the societal challenges that they are facing, and how they are negotiating with their kind of challenges.
Sure.
And then we are coming out with a lot of very interesting, complex questions. The study, my research works, and I'm a person who strongly believe in activistic mode of, because I am also a person who believe, I'm an activist who believe in it. And
so you were saying you're not only an educator, you're not only a researcher, but you're also an activist. You also you take the research, you use the research that you're doing to inform your work as an activist. And so I think this is a bit more of a holistic model of kind of living you know, and being present and trying to make change. But I'm curious, as you're talking right now, about two things. One, what this concept of deepening democracy means, particularly for you. And perhaps I've also seen it called deepening democracy and widening democracy. And maybe if you also work in terms of widening democracy and what the differences are for you between widening and deepening. That's the one question that I have coming to mind as you're speaking. And the other is, what are some of these changes that we're seeing as more women are participating? Particularly, these are within formal mechanisms of of politics, of the state. So what are some of the differences that you see when women start to participate?
Yeah. See, it's a very interesting question, Kevin. One of the first part is that widening. I'll go for the widening democracy, because widening democracy is the process is that there are a group of people who have been completely excluded from the process of this governance. Because of the historic positioning, of class, caste and gender, because caste is very important thing, a social hierarchical structure in India. So caste is very important because certain people are considered as untouchable in the social milieu, and so they are not being a part of any decision making process, and you have a class and you have a gender position and you also have an ethnic positionalities. So they were never been a part of the decision making process. Now this Panchayat Raj institutions is giving a reservation for women, 33% reservation. That is why this 1.06 million women are there in the decision. So this is a process of widening, and you are giving more spaces to enter into the kind of public domain, to make them visible in the kind of public spaces. And the second question is more interesting for me. It's deepening the kind of democracy. See, I would like to kind of say two examples, because I've been working with women from Kerala, the kind of like southern tip to Leh, like the other side of India, near Himalayas. And I've been working with women, and the moment you go and speak with women as a stranger, because I go and discuss with the women, I go and knock the door, they will come, open the door and say, no one is here. And this is irrespective of the socio-linguistic cultural barrier of from the cultural positions from which they are coming. They say no one is here. So this phenomenology of absences is important, because like in Western Maharashtra, for example, the study which I have recently conducted now, in if the fourth child is a girl, then the name that has been given to her is Nakosha, means not wanted.
Not wanted.
Not wanted. So then the moment we are saying that the family is the very strong kinship ties, that we are having, and that family is telling you that you are not being wanted, your presence is not being wanted. And then I have to negotiate and live with this status and identity of not wanted, and my name is a marker of my identity, and that name tells you that you are not being wanted by your immediate ones. So this absences, this societal understanding, this customary practices, and today also when I am presenting in my paper or in this international conferences, I was telling, like I was thinking about that the people are saying about kind of eulogizing or celebrating the kind of customary practices. But I have a kind of customary practices can also be very discriminatory, anti-human. Traditional practices can be anti-human, because we have the systems, the cave panchayats in India, like it is caste panchayats. There, the systems is very anti-human, because they are not allowing the people from the different clans to get married, and if they are married, like then either the people will be traced even for 15 years and they will be beheaded. Or recently there is a case in India that they were married from the different clans and for 15 years and they have been traced back, and the community traced them back and says that now we trace them back and you have to live as a brother and a sister. They have 2 kids. Yeah. And then the community will take care of you, because you are not supposed to marry. So, and for me, like, and which is this knowledge that informs me that this is wrong. Then you are questioning the very epistemology itself, your knowledge pattern itself, right? Because your knowledge of knowledge, from what informs me that this is wrong. And then there is a fundamental kind of questioning that you're asking what is wrong and what is right, and where you have to intervene. And the question of deepening democracy means, you feel that there are certain spaces where there is not democratic values, and you have to go to the spaces to deepen the spaces for the democracy. But here you feel that you are kind of bewildered with the complexities of the issues that is around you, and how to engage with that kind of issues.
I'm seeing 2 things. I'm seeing cultural exclusion, and I'm seeing systemic exclusion, which is interesting, because what we're attempting to do is to get more participation within democratic processes, within institutions. But how can we possibly get more participation in these institutions? Suddenly we have a mandate in India that says we have to have a certain percentage of women who are participating. But how are you going to get women participating when, first of all, culturally, the women are not even recognized, they're not even present, they're not even acknowledged, and their names, I mean names that tell them that they're not wanted, you know. So how can you get from the state of this cultural exclusion to changing the institutional exclusion to becoming more inclusive when people are already being told that they're not wanted, they're not accepted? So it seems to me what comes out of this deeper is that obviously what's going to happen when you do start to get women who are participating, so you have 30% of women who are participating in the governance, then these women, certainly at the outset, are already privileged women. So what does it say about the women who are then involved? I'm sure that they're more from the center than the periphery in terms of them being able to access or being able to be accepted into this mandate of getting more women into politics. It's fascinating about this cultural exclusion.
This is very interesting again. See, there is cultural exclusion, there is social exclusion, there is political exclusion, there is economic exclusion.
Absolutely.
It's happening in the different times. But if you're looking at, you know, like that, the reservation that we're saying about the women, it's for the scheduled caste women. The reservation is for the scheduled caste women.
Yeah.
Reservation is also for the women from the scheduled tribes. So the women from the periphery also coming into the kind of mainstream. It's not only that. And they are facing the patriarchal hegemonic practices.
Right.
But if you're looking at Kevin, one of the interesting things is the number of women who are contesting elections are increasing every term. That means, that is what interests me, what intrigues me, that the moment you're trying to understand that, okay, there is the challenges, the systemic challenges, the social cultural challenges that you're saying about, but still, what makes the women to come forward despite these challenges? That means there is something the woman is getting to herself.
Okay.
That is, there is somewhere she's actualizing, some moment of self-actualization is happening, and one could see there's an intersubjectivity of gender and governance here. Because the moment the women have been entering into the kind of system, they are coming because of the reservation. But when they are making a road, when they are making a public distribution system work, they are not addressing the women's question, they are addressing the governance issues. So then you can really say that there's an intersubjectivity of class, caste and gender and governance coming in. And this is they are no more addressing the question of class, they are no more addressing the issue of a caste, they are also addressing the issues of governance, directly governance issues.
Wow.
Yeah. So then though the entry points they are saying about as women, but the moment they are entering into the loop of that, the governance structure, they are no more the women, they are also the participants of this democratic process where they are entering into the governance structure. And how they are able to kind of negotiate in this intersubjectivity terrain is something that interests me. That is what, you know, like that I trying to understand the whole notion of, you know, like in India, this is a London School of Economics person, you know, like Annie Phillips has written on the politics of presence. She's the person who has written, and that is important because this is not only the politics of ideas, but the politics of presence, because the women, the people have to be present there to make a difference. But I try to go one step forward and say is that it is not only the politics of presence, but it is also the politics of being. Because the historicity, the phenomenology of myself, my ontology, I'm coming with that, you know, and a sense of being there with my body, with myself, which has been informed to me socially, culturally, politically, and I'm making it there. And my body become an important side of my expression, my resistance, and also for my oppression.
So there's this entire being that you're bringing to this, is what I'm hearing. Because the assumption is that when women start to participate within politics more, that the discourse changes from male issues to, let's say, more human issues. The common anecdote that women are more concerned about family and community rather than the personal and the economic. So it's fascinating that what you're saying is that it's not merely as women start to participate that they're concerned with women's issues. Not women's issues alone.
No.
Women's issues, yes. But much more than that. They're concerned about the economics, they're concerned about the politics, they're concerned about the environment, they're concerned about education and social services and going forward. So it's a much more comprehensive kind of look that you're saying that's coming out of this. And that, you were saying, is not merely a presence, not merely a politics of being present. Because we would think of, in a very narrow way, the politics of being present is that women are present, the discourse changes.
That's true.
to be more gender.
That's, and now it's the interesting point that you're saying about gender. See, in Maharashtra, for example, what we are trying to understand is we are very interesting. There's a group, there's a movement, which is called Mahila Rajsata Andolan. That means women participation in governance. So it says about like vote is ours, so power is ours. This is the vote. We give the vote, we need the power. And then the second slogan is democracy at village and dictatorship at houses won't work.
Sure.
So we need the kind of the question the public-private divide that is speaking about. So we need the democracy at the houses too, because the house is one of the most patriarchal institutions that you can see about. So we need the democracy at the houses also. So there, what we are trying to understand is two very interesting movements that they have done. I was really intrigued by that thing. One is Kursi Basa Andolan. That means like you are making, because of this caste positions, the women, suppose is a women panchayat president who has been elected,
yes.
And she is not mentally, culturally in a position to occupy the chair that she is entitled to. Okay.
You can explain that a little bit
further.
further.
Yeah, because I was just going to a kind of recently to Rajasthan, and then one lady was serving me tea.
Yeah.
And so I just went to the kind of panchayat office to discuss about it. And then the lady was serving me tea, and then we said, okay, we'll have a kind of discussion. And I was asking, and she went and sat in the other corner. She sat down, and I said, I was waiting for the panchayat president. I said, then everyone was looking. I said, she's the panchayat president. And like, see, the caste system is so strong, and the patriarchal system is so strong that a woman from a lower caste or a tribe is not even mentally, culturally willing, or not even willing, like, sure, it's not herself able to occupy the chair that she is entitled to.
Sure.
So what we are saying is, as a cultural marker, you just sit on the chair. Kursi basa, kursi means chair, yeah. Basa means sit, make them sit on the chair. Right. But this is important, because for you it thinks that, okay, what is so important to make the women to sit in the chair? But for me it is so important, it's a cultural marker for the women to sit in the chair. That. And the second one is Kap Todo Andolan. That means, see, there, because of the caste practices, the people won't be serving the same cups. Different people from the different caste will be serving different cups. Okay. So that is a social differentiation, saying that you are not in my margins. We are not egalitarian. Even if we are sitting and discussing in a space, we cannot have the same tea in same cups. Sure. So what the people started doing is that they started breaking the cups. Say that we want to be served in the same cup.
So there was this resistance from the different classes of not drinking from different cups, so they started to break them. Now, what's intriguing for me is I'm wondering who started the resistance. Is it coming from the lower class, the middle class, the upper class? What caste is starting this? Is the one thing, and it's this idea of occupying the chair, taking the space. And Eric Olin Wright spoke about, interstitial.
Interstitial,
yesterday.
Yeah.
Find those cracks that are available and occupy them and make them your own. And in that way, move forward with democracy. So I'm very fascinated by.
Yeah. See, the kind of Kap Todo is naturally coming from the lower caste people. Yeah. Lower caste, lower class, because it's not caste is important, because the question of pollution and purity is very important in Indian context of, and most of the places, because even now, we have recently made a documentary by Stalin called India Untouched. In many parts of India, even now we can see that, like, though constitutionally it is not being allowed, it is a sin. But in culturally we are practicing the untouchability in many parts of India.
Sure.
Many,
Again,
many.
It's a disconnect between culture and politics.
Many parts of India. So then the people are exercising the kind of spaces and say that, okay, you are not politically entitled, you are not socially entitled to behave to me like this. So this question is what I'm saying. So they're breaking the cups and saying that we have to be served. So the first time there's an awakening of oneself, one's rights, and this introspective process of understanding oneself, like somewhere you can connect it to a kind of Freirean understanding of transformative politics. Sure. right, you know, like you are entering into a kind of certain spaces, and then you enter into the spaces, then you understand the kind of challenges, and that places started transcending you, and then transcending you through a transformative politics. And then you started understanding the kind of the oppression, the kind of exploitation, the kind of alienation the system is giving to you. And then I don't know how much the Freirean understanding of, you know, that the moment it's that the oppressor is also have to understand that the moment I'm oppressing, I'm engaging in an anti-human behavior.
Sure.
So that needs another set of, you know, like, because it's a Gandhian, because Freire and Gandhi speaks in the same language, you know, that because you beat a person, when a person beats you, then you have to see the other cheek also to that person.
Sure.
And then, you know, then this humiliate and kind of, you know, make the person understand about the kind of activity that he's doing. But it's little difficult in the kind of places in India, because the people are facing the kind of exclusion, the people are facing the kind of exploitation. But I'm very optimistic, Kevin, you know, one thing, there is a very strong politics of Dalits, of the subaltern are coming in India. Very strong women's movement are coming, very strong tribal movement are coming. So then, see, one side is a very complex terrain in India. One side you always see about the spectacle of, you know, like you see about the 26/11, you see about the Maoist movement,
Sure.
you think about the Naxalite movement, the people are speaking about it. But the people are not giving importance to the very strong democratization of the politics that is happening at in a small micro processes, that the women are coming, collectively coming, there is a collective consciousness which is transcended to a kind of political mobilization, which is transforming to a transformative politics that they are doing. And this micro politics and intricacies and interesting points of that, you know, is most of the time the people are not interested.
Sure.
Because it's not spectacular.
This is it. We want to be bedazzled. Everybody wants to have entertainment. You know, in education we call it edutainment. You're not teaching anymore. You're just trying to entertain your students.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing socially within a nation. I want to watch CNN and I want to see the spectacle. I want the wonderful things that happen in the day, and often the wonderful is the violent. But I just want to be bedazzled. So how do we overcome this bedazzling? And I think you're bringing one point out, like celebrate the successes that happen around you every day. The micro successes, the small successes of democracy that occur in the home.
That's true.
That occur in the workplace, that occur in your community. Let's celebrate these and then move forward from here. And stop with this notion of trying to macro change within a day. We're wanting to be so spectacular in a moment.
You are right.
You know, presence it's more than just spectacularity. You know? Presence is about accepting and acknowledging and believing and you know, celebrating those minor successes.
You are right. You know, like because one of the things that I see is there is a kind of disconnect. You know, complete disconnect between the reality. That's the reality again in a kind of I don't know what is real. Now the people are asking the question whether which is real. This is the reality is real before you, because you know, so the whole question of I'm not entering to the philosophical dimensions of the real, but I'm coming to a very materialistic perspective of real. And then, you know, like see, as a person whom I'm teaching in the colleges, I always feel that one of the postmodern crisis for us is that we are getting disconnected from the organic linkages, because we are no more seeing people. We are connected with images. We are only interested in images.
Right. Which is frightening if you consider it from a Said viewpoint of images of othering.
Yeah, and then you don't listen to the kind of voices. You are always in mobile. Because when I teach the classes, I always tell my students, when we were students, I am not again celebrating my period and saying that this is a bad, but I am saying that there is a complete disconnect. You know, in my universities, the student who are staying in the same room, they are in the kind of other student is in the kind of verge of a suicide, and the room partner is not able to understand, and the room partner may be able to know what is happening to her or chat friend in US or UK or in some other places, but not connected to the person who is staying and sharing the room, you know. So this disconnect in the physical places, like Gramsci saying about, you know, like organic disconnect. And that organic disconnect is a postmodern crisis for me. And that is where this process of democracy is important, because you are engaging with people's life. You are being a part of, you're organically being linked to the kind of situations rather than sitting in one places and speaking about it. Because see, one side, like we can have a kind of Foucauldian perspective of multiple selves and saying about it, but one side at a moment we have to say that this is a self at this time I would like to engage with.
Sure.
I have to take one positionality and says that this is a self that I would like to engage at this particular moment of time.
Sure.
That is important for me to understand that.
What about this notion of performativity? I get a little bit of this coming out in the story that you were sharing earlier about the woman who was democratically elected but couldn't occupy the chair because of kind of a cultural hegemony within her mind. So she's performing, in essence, the oppression upon her. But also I think that there's a notion of performativity that could be emancipatory or liberating. As you do come to see, as you're saying, your multiple identities, and finding those identities and the spaces in which to operate with them that are liberating. So how does performativity work for you?
Oh, that's a very, very interesting question. See, performativity is a kind of a very interesting kind of discussion to bring into the kind of thing, because elected women representatives have always been shown that, okay, one of the things that has been always shown against the elected women representatives is the proxy governance.
Sure.
Proxy governance, because they always say it is the husbands or the kind of, the male counterparts is the one who is doing. So there is a tremendous pressure for them to perform, because you have to perform them, and perform on whose basis, because you have a kind of certain role models and you have to continuously do it. And we have a very interesting kind of discussion with the women, and the women comes and says to us, see that initially when we are not speaking, then we'll say that, okay, you are women, like that. That is why we have given you the kind of spaces. We given you the spaces is important. We given you the spaces, but when we give the spaces, then you are not exercising your kind of positions. But once the women started understanding their positions through negotiating the kind of spaces, de-articulating and re-articulating the kind of spaces back and claiming the kind of spaces, and then there is the men on the other side getting frightened. Yes. They're getting insecure, and so the women are saying that, okay, and then once they started performing more and say that, okay, why you want to work like men? So this paradoxical understanding that if she's not working, then okay, she's just a woman, and if she started working more and says that, okay, how more? When you started working, why you want to work like men? And men, we also have a kind of MRA, when you're saying we also have a kind of discussion with men whose wives are going to the kind of political spaces,
Sure.
how they feel about it. So the men are saying, very interestingly, we have called a dialogue with men, because this is reversing the social gaze. Right. Because usually it is the women, but now the powerful, we are reversing the powerful gaze, social gaze, and speaking to men, and men saying that they feel insecure.
They're feeling insecure.
They feel insecure, and insecurity is coming again from the cultural notion that you're speaking about, because they're saying that, okay, their friends, the relatives saying that, okay, you are allowing your wife to go, now she's no more going to be listening to you.
Yeah. What does this say about citizenship?
Yeah.
You use the expression "just a woman."
Yeah.
Right? Just a woman.
Yeah.
She's doing her job in the home, essentially. Just a woman.
Although
I use the word job, but that's kind of a misnomer of a word to use because it's not recognized.
Yeah.
On the flip side, if the woman is occupying an economic space or a workplace that is usually dominated by men, then suddenly, does this make her a citizen?
Yeah.
Now she's a citizen because she's doing a man's job, but she's not a citizen when she's doing a woman's job. And furthermore, the fear for me, and I know that Eric Olin Wright and many others speak about this, is the conflation of citizenship with economics. And suddenly you have the euphemism of money and citizen. What is this? This is terrifying.
Kevin, like this is one of the ideas that I'm coming into my next book, how the capital is becoming an ideology.
Right.
Because we are speaking about citizenship as an ideology. But the moment, like the deepening democracy where the capital is coming and becoming a kind of ubiquitous kind of presence in almost every spheres, whether it's social, political, cultural, and capital is becoming a part. And capital is not, capital itself is becoming an ideology.
Right.
And that is the connection that you're saying about, Till now, yesterday I was present, but I've been not counted as there.
Right.
and today I am entering into a kind of spaces which has an economic correlation, then my presence has been marked.
I'm present if I have an economic impact.
Impact.
Yes.
So I am a marked citizen. So this transference or movement from an unmarked citizen to a marked citizen also have an economic indicator, economic correlation. So this is what one has to also see about, very dangerous kind of understanding. That is what we also have to think about, gendering the kind of spaces. Gendered citizenship, it's not, this time we are thinking about not the elected women representatives alone, but the other women with whom the elected women representative should have to have a kind of discussion with other women, and they should make the counter publics more active in their kind of spaces. And it's not only a kind of only the elected women representatives, but making this as a kind of ripple movement.
Sure.
Right? And will be very slow, but it will be having its kind of impact.
Right.
And that is what one is very interested in. I'm very, very positive, very, very positive and optimistic about the kind of changes that is happening in India, both as a kind of micro politics, and this micro politics has also have a strong impact I see in the longer run at the macro political scenario, because now we are discussing about 33% reservation of women in the Lok Sabha. The moment the 33% reservation of the women are coming in the Lok Sabha, then that's going to change the power equations like anything, and I'm looking forward for that day.
Beautiful. What is the implication then of the Indian democracy, the Indian case, perhaps, for the global democracy, for other states? You know, what's the correlation between what's going on in Delhi and in Kerala with the participatory planning, the people's planning? What is the implication of this? What's the learning that maybe I can take from people's planning, and how does this correlate to participatory budgeting or to participatory democracy and other places?
See, in Kerala, if you're saying about a very interesting moment, you know, like people's planning campaign, that means, you know, you are devolving the power to the people. Yes. The motto is power to the people. That means it is, you see, in India, most of the time, if you're looking at it, it is a normative redistribution of, you know, political power, you know, like to.
Right. And substantial redistribution, because you said the number was 40%?
Yeah. And 40% of the state fund has been earmarked down to the local governance institutions. Yes. And that too in an untied fund. So the people can, you know, like prioritize the need, plan the kind of need, make the kind of plannings at the kind of sitting places, and then the panchayat will decide what is my plan. So the panchayat plan will come out, and then the state development board, you know, like planning board, will decide on what is the kind of planning that is there. So that there is the people's demand that is coming up from down, and that has been manifested into the kind of different notions. So the people are actually there in the Grama Sabha, making their kind of demands and making their kind of budgets, making their kind of plans in all the sectors, not in one sector, all sectors, and they're making the plans and then getting it transacted. So the important thing is that none of the plans which has not been approved by the Grama Sabha will be accepted at the state. So all plans have to be accepted and ratified lower level. So it is very interesting, you know, like, and then this whole process of, you know, like, that is what I'm again saying about very interesting models are coming in different spaces.
Right. Leh, for example. How does Leh differ from Kerala?
Leh is totally different, socially, culturally, politically, economically, because, you know, see, the moment when I worked in Leh for 4 years for making a micro level planning exercise in Leh. See, when I went there, I was taking the baggage of Kerala model with me, because I just came out from the Kerala planning campaign, and I was thinking that I am trying, you know, to do something of this. But the moment I started working there, I started understanding that the geographical terrain of Leh is totally different. I cannot, you know, like, it's have to be entirely different. So we starting with the panchayat. Then we decided that panchayat is not the kind of nodal unit there or a kind of cohesive unit there. So we started making the plan at the hamlet level. Each hamlet will be having something about 6 to 7 houses. And the planning timing, we thought of having it the morning to evening. We changed it. And by the second year, the people are only free towards the end of the day. So our planning exercises, the people will be starting in the evening, maybe from 7 to 12. in the night.
Yeah.
People will be sitting and we will be discussing about in hamlet. So, we made the hamlet plans and then we integrated at the village to village plans and integrated at the blocks to make the block plans, and this block plans were integrated at the district to give the district plan, and we submitted to the council there, and the council has accepted it, and that was one of the first exercise of micro level planning with the people in whole Hindu Kush regions in India.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So the lay model was quite different from the Kerala.
Yeah.
And you found through your own practice that
Yeah.
merely transferring this model from Kerala to lay was not going to happen at all.
Not,
You
yeah.
had to take into consideration
Yeah.
the contextual factors.
Definitely,
Absolutely.
definitely, yeah.
So I want to move on a bit to your book first, to acknowledge the fact that you're just having this book
Yeah.
published. And this is Negotiating the Politics of Presence. And so I believe that many of the themes that we are talking about, Manjula, are within this book. But maybe there is another theme or that has not come out that you would like to talk about, or if not, also kind of the origins of the book, where it came from and why it's come about.
See, this is we also have, since I was telling you that I also have a very active background, activistic background, you know,
Yes.
like there is a group which is called the National Platform. This is the thing. It is
Yeah.
called the National Platform for Promoting Decentralization, NPPD.
Great. And this is in Delhi.
This is in Delhi.
Yeah.
And this is a group of people from academia, from civil society organizations, from bureaucrats, from government institutions, because Ministry of Panchayat Raj, Government of India is a member to this thing. So, different group who are working in this are a part, and we are trying to advocate the process of democratic decentralization.
Yes.
And this NPPD is actually funding research projects in many states. And this is one such project, you know. So, this the moment we are trying to make this project, this is important for us. This is not to be shelved as a project or a kind of research study, but
Right,
now from the month of June onwards, we are going to have a series of meeting in Maharashtra and series of meeting in Bombay, different meetings,
Yeah.
where we will be having a policy kind of advocacy, because one of the policies that we are going to recommend strongly through this report is a two-child norm. It is very interesting in Maharashtra that suppose if you have more than two children, then you are not allowed to be participate or contest in the elections. Two-child, because it's
Oh, wow.
yeah, it is said that for the women, you know, it is a population thing, and for the women, if you have more than two children, then you are not allowed to participate in the election.
Okay.
Yeah. So, that is called the two-child norm. So, what is happening now? It is becoming also anti-women. What happened is that in certain spaces in Maharashtra, they are having 3 children. So, what they decided is that okay, they are now the wife may be conceiving. So, they decided to divorce the wife.
Okay.
And want to contest the elections. And another interesting point, Kevin, is suppose like my third child is a boy,
Yeah.
then I don't want to be a panchayat president. I am even ready to quit my position as a panchayat president because I would like to have a boy.
Okay. So there's a very clear differentiation based on male and female there.
And
Absolutely.
so then we wanted the government to take away that norm. And the other thing which is we would like to ask the government to take away the norm is the Tanda Mukti Sangadan, that is the local grievance redressal mechanisms, which is highly becoming casteist, which is highly becoming classist at the local level, you know, because the local women is going and they are not being allowed to be a part in taking the formal systems. So, we are asking the government to repeal or look at that system and make it more participatory.
Sure.
Rather than a kind of class structure. So, we are going to have a series of meetings to discuss and to make a recommendation to the government, and so we will be having a kind of very strong advocacy related with this. That is the one thing that we will be doing, and the other 3 studies are in the offing, and we are doing Rajasthan, Bihar and Karnataka.
Great.
And will be completed by this year.
Collaboration is a very important value for you, I'm assuming, because I can see that you're working with many different institutes and trying to bridge together the knowledge and the resources that they have. And the fact that this is not merely, again, a research project.
Yeah.
It's not going to sit on a shelf, but it's going to be used. You're going to practice it. So
That's
you're
true.
coming back to this whole holistic model that we started with as being an academic, as being a researcher, and being an activist.
That's true.
You know? It's beautiful. And being an educator, educating for change.
Yeah.
And one way that you educate for change is through making documentaries.
Yeah.
So I understand that you've made 13?
Yeah,
Was it? 13 documentaries. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And one of their most recent is XXY. And I understood you won an award for this very recently, so maybe you can speak a bit about that and also the theme of XXY.
Yeah. So this is the documentary that XXY. It's a transgender issue F2M. So it has won the best documentary in the international award. This is an international film festival, that is a Kashish Film Festival. So this is one the best documentary. Before that, it has also won other documentary at the national level.
Right.
And it has kind of been selected to kind of 8 competitive sections in international festival, even in Toronto, Inside Out. It was there. So it was, it was screened there. So it was been selected in 8 international film festival in competitive sections. And it has won the award. So it is trying to understand the person, the protagonist is female to male transgender.
Yes. So
the documentary starts with this person saying, you know, like a typical man, like a typical woman, I'm a typical transgender.
Yes, absolutely.
So and the kind of his turbulent journey, who first time in Kerala, he's a Keralite, Nandu, so first time in Kerala comes out openly and publicly says that I am an F2M, I am a F2M transgender. So kind of his turbulent spaces that he goes through, the documentary tries to understand that. And just now I have also made, in the process of making 2 documentaries on Binayak Sen, who is a human rights activist in Chhattisgarh.
Okay.
And the name of the documentary is Act of Staying Alive.
Okay.
And he's a person who is working with tribals and the process of participation and the democratic processes that is happening there. And just now we have also completed one documentary that we'll be showing it, screening here in this conference.
Okay.
That is the people-centered initiatives at Leh.
Wonderful.
So we are trying to see, you know, like what are the kind of initiatives, micro-level planning exercises in Leh, and how it is. That is, we'll be showing it, screening it here.
Wonderful. Angela, I think we have to wrap up, but I want to thank you again very much for sharing and engaging in this dialogue with me, and creating new spaces, or looking for spaces that already exist, but celebrating them and bringing them out, and occupying them and pushing them forward. And this notion of transgender, I think it's a wonderful thing. You know, it's acknowledging a space that's already existed. We're not creating new spaces. We're acknowledging the ones that are there, and in that acknowledgement, we can move forward. And so I am very inspired by the work that you do, and I can see a lot of transformation.
And Kevin, it's nice meeting you.
Yes,
it's a very interesting kind of discussion and the debate that we had. And the questions that you put forward were really very, very interesting. Made me also discuss and think within myself to ask about new questions, and it's a very interesting talk. Thank you very much. Thank you.